According to some, St. Lucia was first inhabited sometime between 1000 and 500 BC by the Ciboney people, but there is not a lot of evidence of the presence on the island. The first proven inhabitants were the peaceful Arawaks, believed to have come from northern South America around 200–400 AD, as there are numerous archaeological sites on the island where specimens of the Arawaks' well-developed pottery have been found. There is evidence to suggest that these first inhabitants called the island Iouanalao, which meant land of the iguanas, due to the island's high number of iguanas. The more aggressive Caribs arrived around 800 AD, and seized control from the Arawaks by killing the men and assimilating the women into their own society. They called the island Iouanalao, and later Iouanalao. This is the origin of the name of the Iouanalao International Airport in Vieux Fort. The Caribs had a complex society, with hereditary kings and shamans. Their war canoes could hold more than 100 men and were fast enough to catch a sailing ship. They were later feared by the invading Europeans for the ferocity in battle. 16th century, when the island was first discovered by Europeans, is disputed. Some claim that Christopher Columbus sighted the island during his second voyage in 1493, while others claim that Juan de la Cosa noted it on his maps in 1499, and that the island is included on a globe in the Vatican made in 1502. However, it is doubtful that Columbus passed St. Lucia during his second voyage, as the island lies far south of his known route on that voyage. Juan de la Cosa was exploring northern South America in 1499, and it's obvious that the claim about him naming St. Lucia el Falcon refers to the state Falcon in northern Venezuela, and there is no known globe in the Vatican Library. From the early 1500s, in the late 1550s, the French pirate François Leclerc set up a camp on Pigeon Island, from where he attacked passing Spanish ships. 17th century. Around 1600, the first European camp was started by the Dutch, at what is now Vieux Fort. In 1605, an English vessel called the Olive Branch was blown off course on its way to Guyana, and the 67 colonists started a settlement on St. Lucia. After 5 weeks, only 19 survived, due to disease and conflict with the Caribs, so they fled the island. In 1635, the French officially claimed the island but didn't settle it. Instead, it was the English who attempted the next European settlement in 1639, but that too was wiped out by the Caribs. In 1643, a French expedition sent out from Martinique by Jacques du Parquet, the governor of Martinique, established a permanent settlement on the island. De Roussillon was appointed the island's governor, took a Carib wife and remained in post until his death in 1654. In 1664, Thomas Warner claimed St. Lucia for England. He brought 1,000 men to defend it from the French, but after 2 years, only 89 survived, mostly due to disease. In 1666, the French West India Company resumed control of the island, which in 1674 was made an official French crown colony as a dependency of Martinique. 18th century. Both the British, with the headquarters in Barbados, and the French, centered on Martinique, found St. Lucia attractive after the sugar industry developed, and during the 18th century the island changed ownership and was declared neutral territory a dozen times. Although the French settlements remained and the island was a de facto French colony well into the 18th century. In 1722, the George I of Great Britain granted both St. Lucia and St. Vincent to John Montagu, 2nd Duke of Montagu. revenue. He in turn appointed Nathaniel Uring, a merchant sea captain and adventurer, as deputy governor. Uring went to the islands with a group of 7 ships, and established settlement at Petty Corinage. Unable to get enough support from British warships, he and the new colonists were quickly run off by the French. During the 7 Years' War, Britain occupied St. Lucia for a couple of years, but gave the island back at the Treaty of Paris on the 10th of February 1763. Like the English and Dutch on other islands, the French began to develop the land for the cultivation of sugarcane as a commodity crop on large plantations in 1765. Colonists who came over were mostly indentured white servants serving a small percentage of wealthy merchants or nobles. Near the end of the century, the French Revolution occurred. A revolutionary tribunal was sent to St. Lucia, headed by Captain Lacrosse. Prior to this, the slaves had heard about the revolution and walked off their jobs in 1790 to work for themselves. Bringing the ideas of the revolution to St. Lucia, Lacrosse set up a guillotine used to execute royalists. In 1794, the French governor of the island declared that all slaves were free, as also happened on St. Domingue. A short time later, the British invaded in response to the concerns of the wealthy plantation owners, who wanted to keep sugar production going. On the 21st of February 1795, a group of rebels, led by Victor Hughes, defeated a battalion of British troops. For the next 4 months, a group of recently freed slaves known as the Brigands forced out not only the British Army, but every white slave owner from the island. In 1796, Castries was burned as part of the conflict. 19th century. In 1803, the British finally regained control of the island and restored slavery. Many of the rebels escaped into the thick rainforests, where they evaded capture and established maroon communities. The same year, the French withdrew the forces from St. Domingue after losing 2/3 of the 20,000 soldiers they had sent there against the slave revolt. The new leaders of Haiti declared its independence in 1804, the first black republic in the Caribbean, and the second republic in the Western Hemisphere. The British abolished the African slave trade in 1807. They acquired St. Lucia permanently in 1814. It was not until 1834 that they abolished the institution of slavery. Even after abolition, all former slaves had to serve a 4-year apprenticeship, during which they had to work for free for the former masters for at least 3/4 of the work week. They achieved full freedom in 1838. By that time, people of African ethnicity greatly outnumbered those of ethnic European background. Some people of Carib descent also comprised a minority on the island. Also in 1838, St. Lucia was incorporated into the British Windward Islands administration, headquartered in Barbados. This lasted until 1885, when the capital was moved to Grenada. 20th century to 21st century. Increasing self-government has marked St. Lucia's 20th century history. A 1924 constitution gave the island its first form of representative government, with a minority of elected members in the previously all-nominated Legislative Council. Universal adult suffrage was introduced in 1951, and elected members became a majority of the council. Ministerial government was introduced in 1956, and in 1958 St. Lucia joined the short-lived West Indies Federation, a semi-autonomous dependency of the United Kingdom. When the federation collapsed in 1962, following Jamaica's withdrawal, a smaller federation was briefly attempted. After the second failure, the United Kingdom and the 6 Windward and Leeward Islands, Grenada, St. Vincent, Dominica, Antigua, St. Kitts and Nevis and Anguilla and St. Lucia, developed a novel form of cooperation federation called Associated Statehood, as an associated state of the United Kingdom from 1967 to 1979. Lucia had full responsibility for internal self-government but left its external affairs and defence responsibilities to the United Kingdom. This interim arrangement ended on February 22, 1979, when St. Lucia achieved full independence. St. Lucia continues to recognise Queen Elizabeth II as titular head of state and is an active member of the Commonwealth of Nations. The island continues to cooperate with its neighbours through the Caribbean Community and Common Market, the East Caribbean Common Market, and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States.